Have you ever wondered what happens when the galaxy underestimates humanity? In a universe where advanced aliens dismiss us as primitive, they're about to learn one crucial lesson. It's not about having the most sophisticated weapons. It's about who's brave enough to pull the trigger when it matters most. My hand tightened around the grip of my rifle. The weight was familiar, comforting, even as I stood before the gleaming metal doors of the Galactic Council's grand testing chamber. Behind me, Liana and Cade exchanged nervous glances, their breathing steady but shallow in the thin alien atmosphere. "Remember," I said, keeping my voice low, "they're expecting us to fail. Use it." In a vast universe where humanity was seen as primitive, we were about to show them exactly what happens when we open fire. The doors parted with a pressurized hiss, revealing an arena that stretched impossibly wide, its ceiling so high it disappeared into mist and light. And watching us, hundreds of alien delegates perched in tiered seating that curved around the chamber like predatory birds eyeing their next meal. "Commander Lucan," a voice announced the translation module in my ear, struggling to filter the multitude of harmonic tones. "And representative of Earth, you are here to demonstrate your species' combat capabilities." I stepped forward, boots echoing against the polished floor. The silence was heavy, expectant. I could feel their stares, some curious, most dismissive. "Earth thanks the Council for this opportunity," I responded, following the diplomatic script Ambassador Chen had drilled into me for weeks. What I wanted to say was considerably less polite. A tall, willowy creature with skin like polished obsidian glided forward. Ambassador Nal of the Securian Conclave. I recognized the distinctive silver markings along its neck, indicators of high rank among its kind. "Such primitive weaponry," Nal observed, gesturing toward my rifle with 3 elongated fingers. The universal translator couldn't quite mask the contempt in its voice. "We expected Earth to bring its most advanced technology." I smiled thinly. "We did." A ripple of what I assumed was laughter moved through the assembled delegates. The Sakuri representatives, metallic beings with bodies that seemed to flow like liquid mercury, flickered with patterns of light that our xenologists had identified as amusement. "Perhaps," continued Nal, "the humans misunderstood the purpose of this evaluation." My eyes narrowed slightly as I caught movement along the upper reaches of the chamber. Something small and metallic briefly reflected light before disappearing into shadow. Surveillance drones, most likely. But there was something about their positioning that triggered my instincts. "The purpose is perfectly clear, Ambassador," I replied, keeping my expression neutral, even as I cataloged the positions of each drone I could spot. "Earth wishes to demonstrate its value to the Council. Nothing more." Nal's facial slits, what passed for nostrils among the Securians, flared slightly. "Then let us proceed." As Nal glided back to its position, I caught Liana's eye. She'd noticed the drones too. A slight nod confirmed it. Cade was busy studying the arena itself, his eyes calculating distances and angles. "Good. We each had our roles." "Commander Lucan," announced a new voice belonging to an Unari representative, one of the few species that had shown genuine interest in human culture. "You and your team will demonstrate after the other candidates. First, the Viridian Union." I stepped back, watching as 3 tall, emerald-skinned beings entered the arena. Their bodies were almost translucent, with visible circulatory systems pulsing beneath their skin. They carried what appeared to be simple staffs, though I knew better than to judge alien technology by its appearance. "The Viridians," Cade whispered, his voice barely audible through our secure comms. "Their neural networks are partially external. Those staffs are extensions of their nervous systems." I nodded slightly. "Watch their firing patterns. I want to know their range and reload time, if any." The Viridians moved with fluid grace to the center of the arena. A series of holographic targets appeared at varying distances, some stationary, others moving in complex patterns. With a synchronized movement that suggested hive mind coordination, they raised their staffs. What happened next was genuinely impressive even to me. Arcs of energy, deep green and pulsing with what appeared to be organic complexity, erupted from the staffs. The energy didn't travel in straight lines, it curved, split, and reformed, seeking targets with apparent intelligence. Each target, when struck, shattered into thousands of light fragments before reforming. Applause rippled through the council chamber. The Viridians had scored a perfect performance. Their projectiles are semi-sentient, Liana murmured, guided by bioelectric fields. Effective, I acknowledged, but slow to initialize. Did you notice the 3-second charge? As the Viridians finished, the Sakari team took their turn. Unlike the graceful Viridians, the Sakari moved with mechanical precision. Their weapons weren't separate tools, but extensions of their mercury-like bodies, forming and reforming as needed. The Sakari make me nervous, Kate admitted quietly. Something about their demonstration feels rehearsed, like they're holding back. I shared his concern. The Sakari's shots were perfect, geometrically precise splitting targets with surgical accuracy, but there was a coldness to their efficiency that raised the hairs on the back of my neck. As I watched, I spotted another drone larger than the others, hovering near where the council elders sat. Its movements were too deliberate, too focused. It wasn't there for simple surveillance. "Liana," I whispered, 3 o'clock high position. "That drone isn't part of the security detail." She followed my gaze, her expression hardening. "It's a different design. No council markings." "And there's another," Kate added, at 9 o'clock, positioned with direct sightlines to the primary delegates. A sinking feeling settled in my stomach. This wasn't just about proving humanity's worth anymore. The positioning of those unmarked drones, their sightlines to key council members, the timing of this demonstration, it all pointed to something far more sinister. The Securian announcer's voice cut through my thoughts. "The human contingent will demonstrate next." As we stepped forward, I made a split-second decision. "Change of plans," I breathed into our secure comms. "Liana, you take the primary targets as planned. Cade, maintain your cover fire pattern. I'm going off script." "Lucan," Liana's voice held a note of concern. "What are you seeing?" I kept my voice steady. "I think we're about to witness an assassination attempt, and we're the perfect distraction." The holographic targets materialized before us, shimmering outlines representing various threat levels. Under normal circumstances, this would be a straightforward demonstration. But nothing about this scenario felt normal anymore. "Begin your demonstration, Commander." Nal's voice held an edge I hadn't noticed before. Was that anticipation? Nervousness? I raised my rifle, feeling the familiar weight settle against my shoulder. The first targets were stationary basic skill assessment. Liana and Cade moved into formation beside me, their weapons at the ready. "Commence firing," I ordered loud enough for the council to hear. Liana fired first, her shot striking the stationary targets with precision that would make any Earth military proud. Cade followed his specialized carbine, sending bursts of projectiles in tight groupings. Both performed exactly as expected, demonstrating human competence, but nothing that would truly impress the council. Then came my turn. I aimed at the first target and fired. The shot went wide, deliberately missing by a few inches. A murmur rippled through the council chamber. "As expected," I heard one delegate comment. "Primitive accuracy." I fired again. Another miss. "Commander," Cade whispered urgently, "what are you doing?" I didn't respond. My third shot also appeared to miss the holographic target, but struck something else entirely. A sharp metallic ping echoed through the chamber as one of the unmarked drones I'd spotted earlier suddenly sparked and dropped several feet before its stabilizers compensated. Now I had confirmation. "Liana, Cade," I said quietly through our comms. "Those aren't ordinary surveillance drones. They're armed, possibly explosive, and they're positioning for clear lines of sight to the council elders." Liana's next volley of shots maintained her perfect appearance of hitting only the designated targets, but I noticed how her final round clipped another suspicious drone. "I count 12, she whispered, "distributed to cover all major council species representatives." Cade's voice was steady despite the tension. "We're supposed to be showing off our weapons capabilities, not shooting down security drones. We'll be ejected before we can explain." "Better ejected than complicit in an assassination," I replied. "Besides, no one's connected the dots yet. They think we're just poor shots." Ambassador Now's voice carried across the chamber, edged with mockery. "Is this Earth's best, Commander Lucan? Perhaps your species should focus on developing targeting systems that match your ambitions." Scattered laughter followed, but I noticed the Unari representative watching us with narrowed eyes. more perceptive than the others, perhaps. The targets are merely warming exercises, Ambassador, I call back. Perhaps the Council would prefer a more dynamic demonstration. At my signal, the holograms shifted to moving targets, complex patterns designed to test tracking and predictive firing. Liana and Cade performed admirably, hitting 70% good enough to show skill, but not good enough to seem threatening. I meanwhile continued my deliberate misses, each one disabling or damaging another suspicious drone. 4 down now, 8 to go. A 5th drone, larger than the others, began to move more erratically, as if its operator had realized something was wrong. I tracked it carefully, waiting for the right moment when its position wouldn't reveal my true target. Commander, the Unari representative suddenly spoke. Your firing pattern seems unusual. I froze momentarily. Had they figured it out? Different species, different techniques, I replied smoothly. Humans evolved as pursuit predators. We sometimes approach problems unconventionally. The Unari's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a gesture our xenologists had identified as indicating intense focus or curiosity. But they said nothing more. As the demonstration continued, the tension in the chamber grew palpable. The unmarked drones began moving more frantically, repositioning as their numbers dwindled. 7 down now, 5 remaining. Then I noticed something even more alarming. The Sakari delegation, those mercury-bodied beings who had performed earlier, were shifting positions, spreading out along the chamber's perimeter. Their bodies seemed more fluid than before, edges becoming sharper, more weapon-like. Liana, I whispered, the Sakari, watch them. She glanced toward them, maintaining her firing rhythm. They're changing, preparing for something. Suddenly, Ambassador Now's voice cut through the chamber. I believe we've seen enough of the human demonstration. Their capabilities are clearly limited. We haven't completed our full demonstration, I protested, knowing we needed more time to neutralize the remaining drones. The Council has assessed your performance as adequate but unremarkable. Now continued speaking over me. We will now proceed to the final evaluations. That's when I knew for certain Now was involved. The dismissal was coming too abruptly, too forcefully. They were trying to move us out before we could interfere further with whatever was about to happen. I made a split-second decision that would either save the Council or ensure humanity's permanent exclusion from galactic society. I request a special demonstration. I announced, my voice echoing through the chamber. An Earth tradition before concluding any military exercise. Now's expression shifted confusion, then irritation. This is highly irregular. A simple display, I insisted, holding my ground, to honor our hosts. Surely the Council wouldn't then die a cultural exchange. The Unari representative leaned forward. I would be interested in observing this human tradition. Other Council members murmured agreement, curiosity momentarily overriding protocol. Now couldn't refuse without appearing deliberately obstructive. Very well, Now conceded, voice tight. A brief demonstration only. I nodded to Liana and Cade, who understood immediately. This was our opening. In Earth military tradition, I began projecting my voice while subtly shifting my position for a better angle. We conclude demonstrations with what we call a salute volley, a synchronized display of precision and respect. As I spoke, I tracked the largest of the remaining drones, which had moved to position directly above the central council table where the elders sat. On my mark, I said, raising my rifle. Liana and Cade raised theirs as well, each targeting different drones. 3. The chamber fell silent. 2. The Sakuri representatives began moving more purposefully, now their mercury forms elongating into blade-like appendages. 1. That's Ambassador Now stepped forward. Commander Lucan, I really must insist. Fire. 3 shots rang out simultaneously, each striking not the holographic targets, but the disguised weapon drones hovering above the council. Boom. The drones exploded in spectacular fashion, sending sparks and metal fragments raining down, but crucially neutralizing whatever deadly payload they carried before it could be deployed. Chaos erupted instantly. Council members dove for cover. Security forces materialized from hidden doorways, and the Sakari, now fully transformed into combat form, surged forward towards the council elders. The Sakari are the assassins, I shouted into the commotion, swinging my rifle toward the nearest metallic form. Protect the council. And just like that, the evaluation became a battlefield. with humanity suddenly at the center of a coup attempt that would reshape galactic politics forever. The chamber descended into pandemonium. Delegates scrambled for safety, while security forces struggled to assess the threat. In the confusion, the remaining Sucuria assassination drones activated their weapon systems, humming to life with an ominous whine. "Cade, 3 o'clock high!" I shouted, dropping to one knee to stabilize my aim. He pivoted smoothly, firing 3 rapid shots that caught a drone just as it locked onto a cluster of Unari elders. The explosion sent fragments scattering across the chamber's high ceiling. "2 more by the eastern entrance," Liana called out, already moving to intercept. Through the chaos, Ambassador Nal stood motionless, his obsidian face unreadable. But there was something in his posture, a stillness too deliberate, too calculating. "The Securians," I realized aloud. "They're working with the Securi." As if confirming my accusation, Nal's form suddenly blurred with motion. 3 Securian guards materialized from the hidden alcoves, weapons drawn not aimed at the Securi, but at the Council elders. I had seconds to make a decision that would echo across human history. A wrong move could be interpreted as an attack on the Council itself. The right move might still get us killed, but could save the galactic leadership. I chose. "Liana, cover the elders. Cade, take those drones. I've got Nail." My rifle swung toward the Securian ambassador as he produced a weapon unlike anything I'd seen before, a device that seemed to bend light around it, distorting the very air. Before he could activate it, I fired twice. The first shot struck his weapon, shattering it in a cascade of energy that forced him back. The second hit the floor at his feet, a warning, not a kill shot. I wanted him alive for questioning. "Earth attacks the Securian delegation," Nal shouted, his voice carrying above the din. "The humans are the assassins." "That's a lie," I called back loud enough for everyone to hear. "Check your security feeds. The Sakari drones were targeting Council elders. We shot them down." Nearby, Liana had positioned herself before a group of terrified Council members, her rifle blazing as she picked off 2 more drones with surgical precision. Each shot demonstrated exactly what we'd been hiding in our earlier demonstration, the true capabilities of human marksmen. Cade had reached a control terminal, his fingers flying across the alien interface. Somehow he'd managed to access the chamber's defensive systems. Barrier fields began to materialize around groups of delegates, offering momentary protection. "Lucan," he called. "I've got partial control of the security grid, but something's blocking full access." A Sakari assassin lunged toward him, its mercurial body forming a blade that narrowly missed Cade's throat as he ducked. I fired the specialized rounds I'd loaded before the demonstration, proving their worth as they disrupted the Securi's metallic cohesion. The creature's form wavered, struggling to maintain integrity. Cade didn't waste the opening, driving his combat knife, a simple steel blade we'd brought as a ceremonial piece, into what approximated the Securi's central mass. The creature shuddered and collapsed into a puddle of inert metal. "Tiong," Cade explained, retrieving his knife. "They didn't expect us to bring analog weapons." I allowed myself a grim smile. Sometimes primitive technology had its advantages. Across the chamber, Liana was surrounded by 3 Securi assassins. They circled her, their bodies shifting between solid and liquid states, making them nearly impossible targets. She'd switched to her sidearm, a modified Earth pistol loaded with specialized ammunition. "Liana, drop!" I shouted. She didn't hesitate, throwing herself flat as I fired a wide dispersal round over her position. The air crackled with electromagnetic energy, temporarily forcing the Sakari into solid states. Liana rolled to her feet, firing 3 perfect shots that dropped her attackers before they could recover. "Primitive weapons, huh?" she called to me, the ghost of a smile crossing her face despite the danger. But we were still outnumbered. For every drone we destroyed, 2 more seemed to activate. For every Securi we neutralized, another Securian guard joined the fight. We needed to turn the tide. "The Council security forces aren't responding properly," Cade called, still working at the terminal. "Someone's locked them out of the system." That's when I noticed the pattern. The Securian guards were positioned near critical security nodes. They weren't just participating in the attack. They were actively suppressing the defensive response. "The security override," I called to Cade. "It's being handled manually by the Securian guards." Understanding immediately, Cade targeted his next shots at the control panels near each Securian position. Sparks flew as critical systems were damaged, but the strategy worked. Emergency protocols began to activate throughout the chamber. Armored shutters descended over the council elders' positions. Automated defensive turrets emerged from hidden compartments. The tide was turning, but Ambassador Now wasn't finished. He had reached an emergency evacuation pod not to escape, I realized with growing horror, but to access its communication array. "He's sending a signal," I shouted, already sprinting toward him. "It's not just an assassination, it's a coordinated attack." Liana provided covering fire as I raced across the chamber, vaulting over debris and fallen Sakuri. Nal's fingers worked frantically at the pod's controls, his back to me. I didn't bother with my rifle. This was too close, too critical. Instead, I drove my shoulder into his back, sending us both crashing into the pod's interior. We grappled in the confined space, his alien strength surprising me. "You don't understand what you're interfering with, human," Nal hissed, his voice modulating into frequencies that made my translation module crackle painfully. "The council is stagnant, corrupt. The galaxy needs cleansing." "Save the speech," I grunted, blocking a strike aimed at my throat. "I've heard it all before. Different species, same old power grab." His facial slits flared in what I recognized as rage. "Your species is too young to comprehend galactic politics. The Securian-Sakuri alliance will bring order." "Pretty sure order doesn't start with assassinating everyone who disagrees with you," I countered, managing to pin one of his arms. "That's just called tyranny where I come from." With his free arm, Now reached for an emergency release that would jettison the pod with both of us inside into open space. I couldn't let that happen. Not only would I be trapped with an enemy combatant, but the pod's communication system could still be used to trigger whatever wider attack they had planned. I headbutted him, a very human tactic that caught him completely off guard. The impact was painful for both of us, but it gave me the second I needed to reach my boot knife. The blade wasn't long, but it didn't need to be. I drove it into the pod's control panel, sending cascades of sparks and effectively killing any transmission capability. Now howled in rage, his strength suddenly doubling as he threw me against the pod's wall. Spots danced in my vision, but I maintained my grip on consciousness. This was far from my first close quarters fight. "You've doomed yourself, human," Nal snarled. "Even if you stop us here, the plan is already in motion. Hundreds of cells across the galaxy ready to strike." His monologue was cut short by the pod door sliding open. Liana stood there, her face streaked with sweat and what appeared to be Sakuri residue, her pistol aimed squarely at Nal's head. "Commander, the Unari security forces have regained control of the chamber," she reported calmly, as if we were back in a standard mission briefing. "Thought you might need extraction." Nal looked from her to me, calculation evident in his alien features. Whatever he saw in our expressions must have convinced him further resistance was futile. His shoulders slumped, a surprisingly human gesture of defeat. "You've won this skirmish," he said quietly, "but the war for the galaxy's future has only begun." I allowed myself a small, grim smile as I secured his arms with emergency restraints from the pod's supply cache. Maybe, but humanity just earned itself a seat at the table. As we emerged from the pod, the scene that greeted us was one of controlled chaos. Unari security forces had neutralized the remaining Securian guards. Cade had fully restored the chamber's defensive systems and was working alongside alien technicians to track the origin of the hostile drones. And standing in the center of it all was High Elder Vexer of the Unari, his four eyes fixed intently on our approach. "Commander Lucan," the Elder addressed me, his translator, rendering his complex vocalizations into crisp, precise English. "It appears we owe your species a significant debt." I maintained a respectful posture as we handed Nal over to the security detail. Earth was simply honored to be invited to the demonstration, Elder. We did what any responsible member of the galactic community would do. And yet, Vexer observed, his upper eyes blinking, in what our briefings had told us indicated thoughtfulness. None of the other candidates noticed the threat, or if they did, chose not to act. Around us, the chamber was being secured. Medical teams attended to injured delegates. Council security forces were systematically collecting Sakuri remains for analysis. Through it all, I could feel dozens of alien eyes watching us, not with dismissal or contempt now, but with something new, respect perhaps, or fear. Sometimes it was hard to tell the difference with alien species. The Securian-Sakuri conspiracy appears extensive, Vexer continued. Ambassador Nowell's communications, though interrupted, suggest a coordinated attack across multiple council facilities. Liana stepped forward. Sir, with respect, Earth forces are on standby throughout this sector. With the Council's permission, we could provide immediate security assistance. The offer hung in the air, bold, perhaps presumptuous, but necessary. This wasn't just about saving the Council anymore. This was about establishing humanity's place in galactic affairs. About demonstrating that, despite our primitive technology, we brought value that the other species had overlooked. Vexer's four eyes blinked in sequence, the Unari equivalent of a smile. A generous offer, Lieutenant. One the Council would be unwise to refuse under the circumstances. I fought to keep my expression neutral, but inside a surge of triumph threatened to overwhelm my professional demeanor. In one chaotic hour, humanity had gone from patronized outsiders to essential allies. The High Elder turned to address the recovering council members who had gathered in a protective formation, surrounded by security. Esteemed colleagues, I move for an emergency vote. In light of today's events, I propose we immediately grant Earth Provisional Council membership with all associated rights and responsibilities. A murmur ran through the assembled delegates. Surprise, objection, consideration, all mixing together in a symphony of alien vocalizations. But one by one, representatives stepped forward to signal agreement. The vote is carried, Vexer announced, turning back to me. Commander Lucan, it seems your firing demonstration has earned humanity more than just technical evaluation. You are now addressing the Council as one of its newest members. The weight of the moment wasn't lost on me. From dismissed as primitives to Council members in a single hour, all because we'd noticed what others had overlooked and because we'd acted when others hesitated. Earth accepts this responsibility with humility and determination. I responded the words feeling momentous as they left my lips. And I suggest our first action as Council members should be to address the remaining Securian-Sakuri threat. Vexer nodded, all four eyes focused intensely. Indeed. But first, Commander, I must ask, how did you know, what made you suspect the assassination attempt when our own security forces detected nothing? I exchanged glances with Liana and Cade, considering my answer carefully. This would become part of humanity's defining narrative in galactic politics. It needed to be honest, but also instructive. We noticed because we were already being underestimated, I explained. When you're dismissed as primitive, people become careless around you. They speak more freely, hide less carefully. The Sakuri didn't bother concealing their drones from us because they didn't consider us observant enough to notice or capable enough to respond. I allowed myself a small smile. Being underestimated can be a tactical advantage if you're patient enough to wait for the right moment to reveal your true capabilities. Around us, delegates exchanged glances, the meaning of my words clearly not lost on them. Humanity had just demonstrated that appearances could be deceiving, a lesson the galaxy wouldn't soon forget. The council chamber had transformed from a ceremonial arena into a war room. Holographic displays filled the central space, showing real-time updates from across the galaxy as Securian-Sakuri cells activated their coordinated attack. Stations had been hastily erected, manned by representatives from dozens of species, all working with newfound urgency. And at the heart of it all, somewhat to my surprise, stood the three of us, Earth's primitive delegates, now central to the Council's defense strategy. The Prussian system reports Securian warships dropping out of FTL, an Unari tactical officer announced. 3 capital vessels, multiple support craft. Centauri outpost signals lost, called another. Last transmission reported Sakuri infiltration units breaching primary habitats. Vexer turned to me, all four eyes intense. Commander Lucan, your assessment. I studied the tactical display, noting the pattern of attacks. This wasn't random. The Securian-Sakuri alliance was targeting specific systems in a sequence designed to fragment the Council's response capabilities. They're isolating communication hubs, I observed. Classic divide-and-conquer strategy. Hit the nerve centers first, then move against isolated military assets. Cade had integrated seamlessly with the technical team, his experience with Earth's cyber warfare units proving unexpectedly transferable to alien systems. The attack pattern suggests they're using the Council's own emergency protocols against us, he reported. When one system goes dark, others execute predetermined defensive measures, effectively taking themselves offline and from central coordination. Clever, I admitted. They're using our own fail-safes to ensure failure. Liana, who had been conferring with a group of Viridian tactical officers, approached with a datapad. Earth vessels are reporting in. The Jefferson battle group is nearest to the propulsion system. Captain Rivera requests authorization to engage. I looked to Vexer, sensing the weight of the moment. This would be the first official deployment of Earth forces under Council authority, a historic milestone under the worst possible circumstances. Elder Vexer, I said carefully, with your permission, I'd like to authorize full Earth military engagement in defense of Council assets. The chamber fell silent. What I was proposing it was unprecedented, a newly admitted species immediately deploying military forces across Council space. Under normal protocol, this would require extensive review, multiple layers of authorization, and probably months of deliberation. But these weren't normal circumstances. Vexer's upper eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of intense calculation among the Unari. Then decisively, permission granted, Commander. Coordinate with Central Command for tactical integration. I nodded to Liana, who immediately began transmitting authorization codes to Earth forces scattered throughout the sector. Years of quiet preparation, positioning our ships under the guise of scientific exploration and trade security were about to pay off. Commander Cade called, his voice tight with controlled urgency. I've identified a pattern in the Sakari network traffic. They're receiving coordination signals from a central source, a command vessel at these coordinates. He transferred the data to the main tactical display. The coordinates highlighted a seemingly empty region of space near the galactic core. Empty except for a massive singularity designated as Transit Nexus 7, one of the artificial wormholes that connected distant regions of Council space. That's directly in the jurisdiction of Securian oversight, one of the Unari officers noted. They've been responsible for Nexus 7 security for over 300 cycles. Perfect position for a command center, I observed, hidden in plain sight with instant access to multiple galactic sectors through the Nexus. Vexer studied the display, his face unreadable, even to those familiar with Unari expressions. The Nexus is heavily fortified. Conventional forces would be detected long before they could approach effective range. I exchanged glances with Liana and Cade. We'd prepared for this moment, not this specific scenario, of course, but for the opportunity to demonstrate humanity's unique approach to seemingly insurmountable problems. What about unconventional forces, I suggested? Something they wouldn't expect from primitive humans. For the first time since the crisis began, Vexer's face showed what might have been the Unari equivalent of a smile. I believe Earth has already demonstrated its talent for exceeding expectations, Commander. What do you propose? I stepped closer to the tactical display, zooming in on Nexus 7. The Jefferson Battle Group will engage the Securian forces at Procyon, a very visible, very conventional response that will draw their attention. Meanwhile, Earth Special Tactics Team Epsilon is already positioned near the Cygnus relay station, less than 2 light hours from Nexus 7. Liana picked up the thread seamlessly. Epsilon team specializes in zero detection approaches. Their vessel, the Nightshade, uses adaptive hull technology that, she paused, choosing her words carefully, that we've been developing in secret. It's capable of mimicking background radiation patterns to avoid standard detection methods. I could see the surprise register among the Council officers, not just at our capabilities, but at our admission that we'd been developing technology beyond what we disclosed. It was a calculated risk revealing this now, but credibility was currency in this moment. You've been concealing advanced technology from the Council. One of the Viridian representatives asked, their tone somewhere between accusation and admiration. Let's call it keeping our cards close, I replied. Earth has learned through hard experience that revealing all your capabilities at once isn't always wise, especially when being evaluated by potential allies who clearly viewed us as primitive. Vexer's eyes blinked in sequence, acknowledging the point without endorsing or condemning it. Pragmatism was winning out over protocol, exactly as I'd hoped. The Nightshade can insert a small tactical team directly into the command vessel, I continued. Minimal footprint, maximum impact. We disable their coordination capability and the entire attack loses coherence. A single ship against a heavily fortified command center, another Council officer objected. The probability of success is significantly higher than any alternative strategy, Kate interrupted, displaying a series of calculations on the tactical screen. Conventional forces have a projected 12% success rate with 78% casualties. The Nightshade approach has a 63% success probability with minimal losses. The numbers silence further objections. In crisis, even alien bureaucracies defer to mathematics. How quickly can this operation be executed? Vexer asked. I checked the tactical readouts, calculating distances and response times. The Nightshade can be in position within 90 minutes. Jefferson Battle Group will engage at Procyon in approximately 2 hours, providing the necessary distraction. If authorized now, we could have the command center neutralized before the next council system falls. Vexer didn't hesitate. Authorized, Commander. Proceed immediately. I nodded to Liana, who began transmitting encrypted orders to our forces. The plan was in motion. Commander Lucan, Vexer said, his voice lower now, meant for my ears alone as the council chamber buzzed with renewed activity. I must ask, how long has Earth been preparing for this level of military engagement? Your readiness suggests foresight beyond what a newly contacted species should possess. The question was delicate, loaded with implication. How I answered could establish humanity's reputation for generations to come as paranoid warmongers or a prudent strategist. Elder Vexer, I replied carefully, human history is filled with first contacts gone wrong. Stories where the technologically superior civilization absorbed or eliminated the primitive one. We hoped for the best from the Council, but our survival demanded we prepare for less favorable outcomes. His upper eyes blinked slowly, contemplative. A wise precaution, perhaps, and fortunate for us all today. I allowed myself a small nod of acknowledgement. Humanity has learned that true security comes not from having the most advanced weapons, but from being willing to use whatever weapons you have when principles demand action. Before Vexer could respond, an alert sounded from the tactical display. The Jefferson Battle Group had engaged the Securian forces at Procyon ahead of schedule. Fighting had begun. We should return to our duties, I said, gesturing toward the tactical station. Vexer nodded, the moment of philosophical exchange giving way to the urgent demands of crisis management. For the next hour, the council chamber operated with the coordinated precision of a well-oiled machine. Species that had been trading diplomatic barbs for centuries now worked in seamless cooperation against a common threat. Reports flowed in from across the galaxy, some grim as Securian Sakuri forces claimed early victories, others hopeful as council defenders rallied. Throughout it all, I couldn't help but note how often council members turned to us, the humans, the newcomers, for tactical assessment and strategic guidance. Our primitive perspective, untainted by centuries of council, doctrine, and procedure, was suddenly our greatest asset. Nightshade reports insertion, successful. Liana announced, her voice level, despite the significance. Team Epsilon has penetrated the command vessel's outer hull, proceeding to central control. A collective tension settled over the chamber. Everything hinged on what happened in the next few minutes. If Team Epsilon succeeded in disrupting the command center, the entire Securian Sakuri offensive would lose coordination. If they failed, the Council might face the greatest threat to its stability in generations. Jefferson Battle Group reports heavy engagement, Kate added. Captain Rivera confirms the Securian forces are fully committed. The distraction is working. Minutes crawled by, feeling like hours. Status updates from Team Epsilon came in encoded bursts, minimal communication to avoid detection. Team has reached Central Corridor, encountering resistance. Proceeding. Security protocols bypassed, approaching command center. Heavy opposition, 3 team members wounded, still operational. Each terse report ratcheted the tension higher. Around the chamber, representatives of dozens of species watched the tactical display with expressions that transcended biological differences. Hope and fear look remarkably similar across the galaxy. Then abruptly, the tactical display flickered. For a heart-stopping moment, I feared we'd lost connection. But instead, new information flooded the screen, internal schematics of the Securian command vessel security protocols, communication frequencies, a treasure trove of tactical data streaming directly from Team Epsilon. They've breached the command center, Liana confirmed, unable to keep a note of pride from her voice. They've taken control of the main systems. Across the galactic display, we watched as confusion spread through the Securian Securi forces. Ships stopped mid-maneuver, attack patterns dissolved into disorganized individual actions. Without central coordination, the offensive was collapsing into chaos. Transmitting override codes to all Council forces, Cade announced, his fingers flying over the alien interface with practiced ease. Counteroffensive commencing. A cheer multitonal and expressed through various biological mechanisms erupted through the chamber. Victory wasn't assured yet, but the tide had turned decisively. I allowed myself a moment of pride. Humanity, dismissed as primitive, barely hours ago had just saved the Galactic Council from destruction. Elder Vexer approached, his posture conveying respect even before his words were translated. Commander Lucan, the Council owes Earth a debt that cannot be easily quantified. Your team's actions today have preserved the galactic order. I accepted the acknowledgement with a respectful nod. Earth is honored to serve the Council Elder. We look forward to a long and productive membership. Around us, the mood was shifting from crisis management to cautious celebration as reports of Council victories began to outnumber setbacks. The Securian Securi offensive was crumbling across all fronts. There will be difficult days ahead, Vexer continued. The conspiracy appears widespread. Many trusted allies have been revealed as infiltrators or sympathizers. The Council will need to rebuild trust even as we rebuild our defenses. Earth stands ready to assist in both efforts, I assured him. Sometimes fresh eyes can see patterns that familiarity overlooks. Vexer's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, the closest thing to a full Unari smile I'd ever witnessed. Indeed, Commander. Perhaps what the Council needs most right now is precisely your species' primitive perspective. As the crisis operations transition to recovery efforts, I found a moment to rejoin Liana and Cade at a quiet corner of the chamber. Despite the scratch on Liana's cheek and the obvious fatigue in Cade's posture, they both stood tall representatives of humanity at its finest hour on the galactic stage. Not bad for a bunch of primitives, Cade murmured, a tired smile crossing his face. Liana nodded toward the Council elders, now deep in discussion about reconstruction priorities. They won't underestimate us again. No, Kiyu. I agreed, watching a species that had dismissed us hours earlier now glanced our way with newfound respect. But that just means we'll need to be even better tomorrow. The weight of what we'd accomplished and what lay ahead settled over us. Today, humanity had earned its place among the stars, not through advanced technology or overwhelming force, but through observation, decisive action, and the willingness to risk everything for principles. As if reading my thoughts, Liana said quietly, "They thought our weapons were primitive. They never realized our greatest weapon was how we think." I smiled, surveying the chamber where Earth had just changed the course of galactic history. Let's hope they've learned that lesson well, because something tells me this is just the beginning. 3 days after what was already being called the Nexus incident across Council space, I found myself standing before the fully assembled Galactic Council. The Grand Chamber, repaired with remarkable speed, gleamed under ceremonial lighting, every tier filled with representatives from hundreds of worlds. The atmosphere was solemn yet electric with anticipation. This wasn't another weapons demonstration. This was history in the making. Commander Alexander Lucan. High Elder Vexer's voice resonated through the chamber. Step forward. I advanced to the center of the floor, my dress uniform crisp despite the case of recent days. Liana and Cade flanked me, similarly attired, their posture perfect, a final representation of Earth's discipline before the watching galaxy. 3 standard cycles ago, Vexer continued, humanity stood in this chamber as candidates subjected to evaluation and regrettably dismissal by many among us. His 4 eyes swept across the assembled delegates, lingering pointedly on certain sections where the dismissal had been most pronounced. Today, humanity stands before us as saviors of the Council itself. A murmur rippled through the gathering, acknowledgement rather than objection. The evidence was irrefutable. Earth forces had been instrumental in neutralizing the Securian Securi conspiracy. The Jefferson Battle Group had secured 3 key systems. Team Epsilon had captured not only the enemy command center, but also comprehensive data on the entire conspiracy network, leading to hundreds of arrests across Council space. The formal induction of Earth into the Galactic Council would normally require 17 standard cycles of preparation and ceremonial observance. Vexer noted his translator rendering his precise tones into equally measured English. However, these are not normal times. He gestured to an aide who approached bearing what appeared to be an ornate metallic sphere, the Council Orb. I realized the physical embodiment of membership containing quantum entangled particles linked to every Council world. By unanimous vote of the emergency convocation, Vexer announced, Earth is hereby granted full Council membership with all attendant rights, responsibilities, and authorities effective immediately. The aide presented the orb to me. I accepted it carefully, feeling its substantial weight, both physical and symbolic. This small sphere represented humanity's official entrance onto the galactic stage, not as supplicants or junior partners, but as full equals. Earth accepts this honor with gratitude and commitment. I responded the carefully prepared words, feeling suddenly inadequate for the magnitude of the moment. Taking a breath, I decided to speak more directly. 3 days ago, we stood in this chamber as outsiders. Our capabilities dismissed, our potential overlooked. Not through malice, but through a perspective shaped by different evolutionary paths and technological philosophies. I looked around at the assembled delegates, making eye contact with representatives from dozens of species. That dismissal nearly proved catastrophic for the Council. Not because humanity's weapons were superior, they weren't, but because being underestimated allowed us to see what others missed. To act when protocol might have demanded hesitation. The chamber was silent, hundreds of alien dignitaries focused intently on my words. The weight of the moment pressed on me. This speech would be studied by human historians for generations. It needed to establish our place without arrogance, our strength without threat. Humanity does not come to the Council claiming technological superiority or ancient wisdom. We bring something different, a perspective shaped by our own turbulent history, a willingness to question established patterns, and perhaps most importantly, a recognition that true strength lies not in the advancement of our tools, but in how, when, and why we choose to use them. I gestured to Liana and Cade. When we three entered this chamber for our demonstration, we carried weapons that many of you considered primitive. But we also carried something else, the cumulative lessons of thousands of years of human conflict and cooperation. The understanding that preparation matters more than sophistication. That observation can outweigh firepower. That decisive action in defense of principles is the truest measure of civilization. Elder Vexer's upper eyes blinked in what I now recognized as approval. Around the chamber, translators worked furiously to convey the nuances of my message across hundreds of languages and communication modalities. The conspiracy we helped uncover sought to remake the galaxy through force, imposing a single vision of order by eliminating diversity of thought and species. Earth rejects this philosophy absolutely. We believe that the Council's greatest strength is precisely its diversity of biology, of technology, of perspective. I raised the Council orb slightly. With this symbol of membership, Earth pledges not only our military support in times of crisis, but our commitment to the fundamental principle that unites us all, that different paths of evolution and advancement can coexist in peaceful cooperation, that no single species holds the definitive answer to the universe's greatest questions. Approval rippled visibly through the chamber, nods, gestures, color changes, and posture shifts that transcended biological differences. And if I may offer one lesson from Earth's history, I continued. It is this: never mistake technological differences for capability differences. Never confuse unfamiliar approaches with inferior ones. The species that appears most primitive by your standards may possess strengths you cannot measure with your instruments. I carefully returned the Council orb to its ceremonial stand at the center of the chamber. Today, humanity stands with the Council, not because our weapons prove superior, but because our perspective proved valuable. We hope to learn from your wisdom, even as we offer our own, together facing whatever challenges the galaxy presents next. The chamber erupted in the Council's traditional gesture of unified approval, a symphony of sounds, lights, and movements unique to each species, but coordinated into a powerful whole. It washed over us like a wave, the formal acknowledgement of Earth's arrival as a galactic power. As the ceremony concluded and we were escorted to the diplomatic reception that would follow, Liana leaned close. "Not bad, Commander. I think you made an impression." Cade nodded toward the group of Viridian officials who were clearly waiting to speak with us. "More than an impression, I'd say we're the most popular primitives in Council history." I smiled slightly, watching as representatives from dozens of worlds maneuvered to secure conversations with Earth's delegation. Our demonstration had certainly captured attention, but it was what came after our decisive action in the face of conspiracy that had truly established humanity's reputation. "Commander Lucan." A familiar voice greeted us as Elder Vexer approached, accompanied by representatives from 3 other senior council species. "Your words honored the occasion and clarified much about your species' approach to galactic affairs." I inclined my head respectfully. "We believe in transparency, Elder, especially with allies." "Speaking of transparency," Vexer continued, his upper eyes blinking rapidly, "there is the matter of Earth's undisclosed technological developments. The adaptive hull technology you mentioned. Other capabilities, perhaps. And there it was, the inevitable questioning that would follow our dramatic entrance to council politics. How much had Earth been hiding? What other surprises might we reveal? Earth has developed certain technologies along paths different from council standards, I acknowledge carefully. Not necessarily more advanced, often simpler in fact, but optimized for our specific needs and environments. We're prepared to share these developments through proper council channels now that we're full members." It wasn't a complete answer, of course. Earth had indeed been developing technologies in secret, not out of malice, but out of prudence. Until we understood our place in the galactic community, caution had seemed the wisest course. Vexer seemed to accept this diplomatic response. "The Science Directorate will be most eager to establish exchange protocols. Your approach to adaptive materials in particular seems innovative." The conversation shifted to more immediate concerns, the ongoing security operations against remaining Securian Securi cells, the political restructuring that would inevitably follow such a massive conspiracy, Earth's our formal integration into Council defense networks. Throughout it all, I was acutely aware of the eyes on us, not just physically present delegates, but countless observers across Council space watching these proceedings via quantum entangled transmission. Humanity's debut on the galactic stage was being witnessed by trillions of beings across thousands of worlds. Hours later, as the formal reception wound down, I found a quiet moment with Liana and Cade on an observation deck overlooking the Council capital world's nightside, a sprawling tapestry of lights representing dozens of species living and working in harmony. Hard to believe 72 hours ago we were just the primitive delegation, Cade mused, gazing out at the alien cityscape. Now we're fielding technology exchange requests from species that have been spacefaring for millennia. Liana leaned against the railing, her expression thoughtful. They're not just interested in our technology, they're interested in how we think, our approach to problems. It's like they've been stuck in the same patterns for so long, they've forgotten how to see things differently. That's our real value to the Council, I agreed. Not our weapons or our ships, but our perspective, our willingness to question established wisdom, and our ability to act decisively when principles are at stake, Liana added. That impressed them more than any technology could have. A comfortable silence fell between us as we contemplated all that had transpired and all that lay ahead. Earth's journey among the stars had only just begun. There would be challenges, misunderstandings, perhaps even conflicts as we integrated into this vast, complex galactic society. But we had earned our place, not through domination or technological supremacy, but through observation, action, and principle. The qualities that made us human had proven to be our greatest strength in a galaxy of wonders. So, Cade finally broke the silence, a hint of his usual wry humor returning. Does this mean we get to stop pretending our weapons are less accurate than they really are? I laughed softly. I think that particular pretense is definitely over. But we should probably maintain some mystery. It's worked well for us so far. Liana smiled. The galaxy thought they were evaluating us. They never realized we were evaluating them just as carefully. And now, Cade asked, what's next for humanity among the stars? I turned from the view to face my colleagues, my friends who had stood beside me through this historic moment. And now we do what humans have always done best. We adapt, we learn, we grow, and we remind the galaxy that sometimes the most powerful force isn't the most advanced weapon. It's knowing when and how to use the weapons you have. Lyanna finished. I nodded, turning back to the sprawling galactic capital. Exactly. The firing line was just the beginning. Our real contribution to the Council is only just starting. As we stood there, three humans gazing out at the heart of a galactic civilization that had just welcomed us as equals, I couldn't help but feel a profound sense of pride. Not pride in military victory or technological achievement, but in the fundamental human qualities that had brought us to this moment. Curiosity, adaptability, courage, and the willingness to stand for principles even when outnumbered. The galaxy had dismissed us as primitive. Now they would learn what humanity truly had to offer. And something told me they were just beginning to understand. Hey there, if you enjoyed the firing line, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What was your favorite moment? Do you think humanity made the right impression on the Galactic Council? Don't forget to subscribe for more sci-fi stories like this one, where humanity proves itself against the vastness of the cosmos. I'm working on a new series exploring what happens after Earth joins the Council, and subscribers will be the first to know when it drops. Until next time, remember, sometimes being underestimated is your greatest advantage.